Did you know that behind the glamorous facades of Hollywood's brightest stars lurked some truly stomach-turning secrets? While their public images sparkled with perfection on the silver screen, many of Tinseltown's most beloved icons harbored shocking hygiene habits that would make even their most devoted fans recoil in horror. The truth about what went on behind closed doors in the golden age of Hollywood reveals a stark contrast to the polished personas we remember today. From bad breath to body odor, these silver screen legends proved that even the most beautiful people in the world weren't immune to basic human problems, and sometimes their issues went far beyond what the average person would consider acceptable. Gable. Clark Gable, known to millions as the dashing Rhett Butler, suffered from such severe halitosis that his co-stars dreaded kissing scenes with him. By age 32, the King of Hollywood had nearly all his teeth removed due to a devastating gum infection in 1933, which led to his wearing full dentures and developing persistent bad breath. His Gone with the Wind co-star Vivien Leigh repeatedly complained about the foul stench during filming, making their romantic scenes particularly challenging. According to Hollywood lore, she would steel herself before each take, knowing that the passionate embrace would come with an olfactory assault. The dental disaster that plagued Gable began with a severe case of pyorrhea, a gum disease that caused intense pain and eventually led to the extraction of most of his teeth. After being hospitalized for several days, he retreated to Canada to allow his gums to heal enough for dentures. This medical crisis resulted in the chronic halitosis that would follow him throughout his legendary career. Despite being voted the King of Hollywood in a 1938 poll, Gable couldn't escape the embarrassing condition that made his leading ladies wince. Ironically, despite his notorious breath problems, Gable had what many described as a cleanliness fetish in other aspects of his personal care. He was known to shower multiple times daily and absolutely refused to take baths because he couldn't stand sitting in his own filthy water. This peculiar obsession extended to his bedding as well. He insisted on having his sheets changed every single day. A roommate from his early days described Gable as having a cleanliness fetish, noting that he meticulously shaved his chest and armpit hair because he believed excess body hair made one smell worse and sweat more. The contrast between Gable's immaculate bodily cleanliness and his infamous bad breath creates one of Hollywood's most fascinating contradictions. The man who captivated audiences with his roguish charm and confident masculinity was simultaneously obsessed with cleanliness, yet hampered by a condition that made intimate scenes uncomfortable for his co-stars. His dental issues remind us that even the most idealized movie stars of the Golden Age faced very human problems beneath their carefully constructed public images. Errol Flynn, Johnny Depp's predecessor as Hollywood's resident bad boy, Errol Flynn, was renowned for his swashbuckling roles and roguish charm in films like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood, but his personal hygiene apparently failed to match his dashing on-screen persona. Despite his heartthrob status during Hollywood's golden age, Flynn was frequently described as unkempt and malodorous by those who worked closely with him on movie sets. His wild lifestyle of excessive drinking, drug use, and hedonistic partying contributed significantly to his neglect of basic cleanliness. Flynn was known for his extraordinary consumption of alcohol, reportedly drinking up to a quart of vodka daily in his later years. This level of intoxication naturally led to a diminished concern for personal hygiene, as his priorities shifted increasingly toward the next drink or romantic conquest rather than maintaining basic cleanliness standards. Marlene Dietrich, one of his many romantic conquests, aptly nicknamed him Satan's Angel, perhaps as much for his odor as for his wicked behavior. Flynn's deteriorating health and continued substance abuse only worsened his hygiene as his career progressed. By the late 1950s, as his once handsome features bloated from alcohol abuse and his liver began to fail, his appearance and smell reflected his declining physical condition. When he died in 1959 at just 50 years old, the autopsy revealed extensive liver damage that would have killed him within a year had the heart attack not taken him first. The stark contrast between Flynn's idealized screen image, the dashing hero with perfect hair and immaculate costumes, and the increasingly disheveled reality of his personal appearance illustrates the growing disconnect between his public and private personas. The man who embodied physical perfection and adventurous masculinity for millions of moviegoers was, in reality, slowly destroying himself through excess and neglect, with his deteriorating hygiene serving as a visible manifestation of his self-destructive lifestyle. Bela Lugosi, Robert Pattinson, wasn't the first vampire heartthrob with questionable cleanliness. Bela Lugosi, the original Dracula, whose hypnotic stare and elegant mannerisms defined the aristocratic vampire for generations of moviegoers, reportedly had hygiene habits as dark as his famous cape. Behind that mesmerizing gaze and sophisticated European accent lurked an actor who rarely bothered with regular bathing, creating an ironic contrast between his character, refined demeanor, and his own personal habits. The Hungarian-born star brought authentic old-world charm to his portrayal of the Transylvanian Count, but his personal habits were far from refined. Cast members often complained about working in close proximity to Lugosi, especially during long, hot days under studio lights, when his natural body odor became particularly noticeable. His distinctive accent and formal demeanor created an impression of aristocratic sophistication that was apparently not reflected in his bathing frequency. Lugosi's hygiene issues worsened as his career declined, and he battled morphine addiction following an injury. Once the highest-paid actor in Hollywood for his iconic role, Lugosi fell into poverty and struggled with substance abuse, further neglecting his personal care. By the time he appeared in Ed Wood's notoriously bad films in the 1950s, his disheveled appearance and poor hygiene had become apparent even to casual observers, a sad contrast to the elegant Count he had once portrayed. The irony wasn't lost on Hollywood insiders. The man who portrayed one of cinema's most sophisticated monsters was himself considered rather monstrous in the hygiene department. Lugosi's career trajectory from respected dramatic actor to typecast horror icon to addiction-ravaged has-been was reflected in his deteriorating appearance and cleanliness, creating a poignant counterpoint to the immortal, unchanging vampire he played on screen. Judy Garland. Judy Garland's struggles with personal care stemmed from deeper issues than mere neglect. The beloved star was systematically controlled by MGM studio executives who dictated every aspect of her life, including her eating habits and appearance from the time she signed with them at just 13 years old. Her hygiene issues were a symptom of the larger abuse she suffered under the exploitative studio system that treated child stars as commodities rather than human beings. Constantly pushed to maintain an unhealthy weight through studio-enforced diets and pills, Garland often lacked the energy or motivation for basic self-care. MGM executives, particularly Louis B. Mayer, referred to her as a fat little pig with pigtails and restricted her to chicken soup, black coffee, cigarettes, and appetite-suppressing pills. This brutal treatment about her appearance created deep insecurities that affected her self-care routines and overall well-being throughout her life. Her grueling work schedule left little time for personal hygiene, and as her addiction to studio-supplied amphetamines and barbiturates worsened, her appearance and cleanliness suffered noticeably. By the time she filmed The Wizard of Oz at age 16, she was already caught in a devastating cycle of substance abuse that affected every aspect of her health, including her hygiene. MGM doctors regularly prescribed pep pills to keep her energetic during 72-hour work sessions, followed by sleeping pills to force rest, creating a destructive pattern that would haunt her for the rest of her life. As Garland's career progressed, her increasingly erratic behavior and struggles with addiction made her notorious for tardiness and unreliability on set. These issues often manifested in neglected personal appearance and hygiene, particularly during periods of severe depression or substance abuse. The bright-eyed Dorothy from Oz gradually transformed into a troubled woman, whose external appearance reflected her internal struggles, with her hygiene becoming another casualty of the childhood stardom that had robbed her of normal development and healthy coping mechanisms. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin's iconic Little Tramp character, with his baggy pants and disheveled appearance, wasn't entirely an act. Despite amassing enormous wealth and becoming one of the most powerful figures in early Hollywood, Chaplin maintained surprisingly sparse personal hygiene habits throughout his life. The comic genius, whose precision and attention to detail made him a filmmaking legend, apparently didn't apply the same meticulous standards to his bathing routine. Having grown up in extreme poverty in London, where regular bathing was a luxury he rarely experienced, Chaplin never fully embraced modern hygiene practices, even after becoming one of the world's most famous and wealthy entertainers. His childhood in Victorian England's slums, where his mother struggled with mental illness and his father died of alcoholism, left lasting impressions on his habits and worldview. Despite eventually living in mansions and owning multiple properties, Chaplin retained some of the behaviors formed during his impoverished youth. His romantic partners often commented on his aversion to regular bathing and resistance to modern toiletries. Lita Gray, his second wife who married him at just 16 years old, mentioned his peculiar hygiene habits in her divorce proceedings, noting that despite his wealth, he often neglected basic cleanliness. This disconnect between his enormous success and his personal habits created a strange dichotomy. The man who revolutionized cinema and built an entertainment empire apparently couldn't be bothered to shower regularly. The man who made millions laugh with his perfect physical comedy apparently made those in his personal life wrinkle their noses for entirely different reasons. Perhaps there was something fitting about Chaplin's hygiene habits, mirroring aspects of his most famous character. The Little Tramp's shabby appearance and outsider status reflected Chaplin's own unwillingness to fully assimilate into conventional society, even in matters as basic as personal cleanliness. His resistance to adopting standard hygiene practices, despite his wealth and success, suggests a complex relationship with his past and the trappings of his hard-won prosperity. Mayhei West. Mae West, the sultry sex symbol known for her provocative one-liners and hourglass figure, harbored a strange aversion to regular bathing that contradicted her carefully cultivated image as the ultimate object of desire. The blonde bombshell who invited men to "come up and see me sometime" reportedly believed that frequent washing would dry out her skin and diminish her famous curves, leading her to adopt unconventional cleanliness habits that prioritized appearance over hygiene. Instead of showering, she preferred elaborate beauty rituals involving oils and creams that she believed would preserve her youthful skin and voluptuous figure. These time-consuming beauty regimens focused primarily on maintaining her appearance rather than cleanliness, reflecting West's understanding that in Hollywood, looking good often mattered more than smelling good, especially in an era before high-definition cameras might reveal imperfections. While she maintained an immaculately made-up public appearance, with perfect hair, makeup, and costuming. Those who worked closely with her on set often noticed an unpleasant odor emanating from beneath her perfume, particularly during long days of filming under hot studio lights. Her personal assistants were tasked with keeping fresh flowers and incense burning in her dressing room to mask the smell, creating an elaborate system of odor management that preserved the illusion of the perfect sex goddess she portrayed on screen. West's unusual approach to hygiene reflected her broader philosophy of creating and maintaining a carefully constructed public persona. Just as she crafted her distinctive speaking style, exaggerated walk, and provocative image, she developed her own rules about personal care that prioritized visual appeal over conventional cleanliness. For a woman who built her career on challenging social norms about female sexuality, perhaps it was fitting that she also rejected standard expectations about bathing and hygiene, creating her own rulebook for maintaining her status as Hollywood's most famous sex symbol. W.C. Fields, the comedian known for his misanthropic wit and red, bulbous nose, had a legitimate excuse for his notorious body odor. He rarely bathed due to a peculiar phobia of water that extended to nearly all aspects of his life. This unusual fear influenced not only his personal hygiene, but became incorporated into his comedic persona, contributing to the curmudgeonly character that made him famous in films like The Bank Dick and My Little Chickadee. His water aversion extended beyond personal cleanliness to his famous distaste for drinking water, preferring alcohol instead with his famous quip, "I never drink water. Fish make love in it." This wasn't merely a clever line for his act, but reflected his genuine preference for alcoholic beverages, which he consumed in quantities that would stagger most people. Fields's legendary drinking habits, he reportedly consumed up to 2 quarts of hard liquor daily, further contributed to his body odor, as alcohol seeps through the pores and creates a distinctive smell. His eccentric personal habits contributed to his disheveled appearance, which became part of his comedic persona. The rumpled, red-nosed misanthrope, whose appearance matched his cynical worldview. Fields's bulbous, alcoholic's nose, uncombed hair, and wrinkled clothing weren't just costume choices, but reflected his actual appearance off-screen as well. Unlike many stars who transformed dramatically for the camera, Fields essentially played an exaggerated version of himself, including his questionable hygiene. Co-stars often commented on his strong smell, particularly as his alcoholism worsened over the years. The man who made audiences howl with laughter made his colleagues hold their breath during close scenes. Yet Fields's poor hygiene became so intertwined with his public persona that it's difficult to separate the authentic person from the character he created. In a strange way, his aversion to water and the resulting body odor became assets in his career, contributing to the authentic, rumpled appearance that made his misanthropic character so believable and beloved by audiences. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart's tough guy image on screen in classics like Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon was matched by an equally rugged approach to personal hygiene that sometimes crossed the line from masculine casualness into genuine uncleanliness. The star who embodied the hard-boiled detective and world-weary romantic lead was notorious for wearing the same clothes for days without washing them and frequently skipping showers between shoots, creating a lived-in appearance that sometimes veered into genuine squalor. His constant cigarette smoking, both on and off-screen, added another layer to his distinctive aroma. Bogart was rarely seen without a cigarette, eventually smoking up to 3 packs daily, which inevitably permeated his clothing, hair, and breath with the acrid smell of tobacco. Combined with his sporadic bathing and habit of re-wearing clothes, this created a powerful olfactory presence that co-stars couldn't help but notice during intimate scenes. Lauren Bacall, his fourth wife and frequent co-star, eventually helped improve his habits somewhat after their marriage in 1945. The 19-year-old Bacall fell madly in love with the 44-year-old Bogart despite his hygiene issues, but gradually influenced him to adopt more regular bathing and clothing changes. Their legendary romance, which began during filming of To Have and Have Not, overcame not only their age difference, but apparently his aromatic challenges as well, demonstrating the power of their connection. Bogart's early reputation for questionable cleanliness was well established in Hollywood circles long before Bacall came along. His signature rumpled look wasn't entirely the work of costume departments. It reflected his casual attitude toward personal appearance and hygiene that aligned with the tough, no-nonsense characters he often portrayed. Perhaps there was something appropriate about the man who played detectives and soldiers having a rough-edged personal presence that matched his screen persona, creating an authentic grittiness that contributed to his enduring appeal as one of Hollywood's most masculine icons. Bette Davis. Bette Davis, known for her intense performances and famously expressive eyes, reportedly had body odor issues that challenged her co-stars throughout her long career. The two-time Academy Award winner, who delivered unforgettable performances in films like All About Eve and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, apparently brought an equally memorable presence to set through her occasional hygiene problems, particularly during physically demanding roles. During the filming of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, in 1962, her longtime rival Joan Crawford allegedly wrote a letter to director Robert Aldrich complaining about Davis's smell, saying it was quite distracting, and claiming she found herself gagging on several occasions. While the authenticity of this letter remains debated by film historians, it may have been fabricated as part of their legendary feud. Multiple sources from various film sets mention Davis's occasional hygiene issues, suggesting there was at least some truth to the rumors. Davis's intense physicality as an actress likely contributed to her perspiration problems. Unlike many glamour queens who stood still and looked beautiful, Davis threw herself completely into her performances, often engaging in physically demanding emotional scenes under hot studio lights. Her commitment to authenticity in her performances, including appearing disheveled or unattractive when the role demanded it, may have extended to neglecting certain aspects of personal freshness in service of her art. The tension between Davis and Crawford during Baby Jane makes it difficult to separate fact from fiction regarding Davis's hygiene. Their bitter rivalry, which began decades earlier and reached its peak during this production, colored every interaction and complaint. Whether Crawford's alleged letter was genuine concern or strategic character assassination, the rumor about Davis's body odor became part of Hollywood lore, demonstrating how even hygiene could become weaponized in the intense competitive environment of the studio system. Orson Wells. Orson Wells, the brilliant filmmaker behind Citizen Kane, who revolutionized cinema with his innovative techniques and storytelling, became increasingly neglectful of his appearance and hygiene as he aged. The contrast between the handsome, ambitious young director who took Hollywood by storm in 1941 and the overweight, disheveled figure of his later years provides a stark illustration of his complicated relationship with the industry that both celebrated and rejected his genius. While the young Wells had been considered quite handsome, tall, dark, and commanding with his resonant voice and confident bearing, his later years were marked by extreme weight gain and deteriorating personal care habits. As his weight ballooned to over 400 pounds, basic hygiene became more challenging, and his declining career opportunities and financial struggles seemed to diminish his motivation to maintain appearances. The boy wonder who had directed, written, and starred in what many consider the greatest film ever made at age 25 had, by his 60s, become a caricature of excess and neglect. Associates described his clothing as frequently stained with food, and his body odor became a point of private conversation among those who worked with him on his later projects. Wells's legendary appetite, he often consumed enormous meals, sometimes ordering multiple entrees for himself at restaurants, resulted in food stains on his clothing that he apparently didn't bother to clean. His physical presence, once commanding and magnetic, became increasingly problematic as his hygiene declined along with his weight gain. The genius who revolutionized American cinema apparently couldn't be bothered with regular showers or clean clothes in his later years. Some speculated that his declining hygiene paralleled his frustrations with the film industry that increasingly marginalized his talents despite his early brilliance. Having been rejected by the Hollywood system after initially being hailed as its greatest innovator, Wells seemed to reject societal norms in return, including basic standards of cleanliness, creating a physical manifestation of his outsider status in an industry that had once embraced him as its brightest star. John Barrymore. John Barrymore, from the famous Barrymore acting dynasty and Drew Barrymore's grandfather, was known as the Great Profile for his handsome features, but his personal habits were far from attractive. Considered one of the greatest actors of his generation and a legitimate stage star before transitioning to film, Barrymore's legendary performances in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Grand Hotel contrasted sharply with his deteriorating personal habits as alcoholism gradually destroyed his health and career. As his alcoholism worsened, so did his hygiene. In his later years, Barrymore was frequently intoxicated on set, often wearing the same clothes for days and neglecting basic cleanliness. His performances became increasingly erratic, with colleagues noting that he could barely remember his lines and relied on cue cards placed around the set. This professional decline paralleled his personal deterioration, with his once meticulous appearance giving way to visible neglect. His breath was reportedly so bad from drinking and poor dental care that directors would position other actors at a distance during dialogue scenes. The classically trained actor, who had once been considered among the most beautiful men in America, deteriorated into a disheveled state that shocked his colleagues and friends in his final films. By the time he made Playmates in 1941, his last film before his death, Barrymore was essentially playing a parody of himself, a once great actor destroyed by alcohol. Barrymore's decline illustrates the devastating effects of alcoholism not only on talent and career, but on the most basic aspects of self-care and dignity. The man whose profile was considered so perfect it was filmed in silhouette for maximum effect became a cautionary tale about the ravages of addiction, with his hygiene serving as a visible manifestation of his inner demons. His death in 1942 at age 59 from cirrhosis and other complications of alcoholism marked the sad end of a brilliant career and a once beautiful man who had lost the will or ability to maintain even basic cleanliness. Conclusion. While modern celebrities make headlines for skipping daily showers in the name of environmental consciousness, Golden Age stars often had more complex reasons for their poor hygiene. The intense pressure of studio contracts, punishing work schedules, and lack of privacy contributed to stars neglecting self-care. Others developed peculiar habits as a reaction to their manufactured public images. The studio system that created these icons often pushed them to physical and mental breaking points, with substance abuse, mental health struggles, and declining personal care becoming collateral damage of their fame. Behind every glamorous publicity photo lurked the reality of ordinary humans cracking under extraordinary pressure. The shocking hygiene habits of Hollywood's Golden Age stars remind us that celebrity culture has always involved smoke and mirrors. Today's heavily filtered Instagram posts have simply replaced yesterday's carefully staged studio portraits in creating idealized images that bear little resemblance to reality. Stars like Clark Gable, with his dentures and bad breath, or Joan Crawford, with her painfully modified facial structure, show us that the pursuit of perfection has always come at a cost. The next time you watch a classic film and marvel at the seemingly flawless stars, remember that the camera didn't capture the full picture or smell of Hollywood's most beloved icons. What other secrets might be hiding behind the glamorous facades of your favorite classic movie stars? The tales of shocking hygiene habits are just the beginning of Hollywood's hidden history. From secret affairs to studio cover-ups, the real stories often prove more fascinating than anything captured on film. If you enjoyed this glimpse behind the curtain of Hollywood's golden age, let us know in the comments which classic star you'd like to learn more about next. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more surprising revelations about the icons who shaped cinema history. The truth is always stranger and sometimes smellier than fiction.